Good morning to you all, wherever you are, and welcome to Sunrise this lovely morning. I'm Chamberlain Oso.
Good morning and welcome. I'm Kayla Megwa.
It's a beautiful Wednesday morning, the 4th day in the month of December 2024. Can you even believe that? Yeah, it's drawing to a close very, very fast. Anyway, I'm going to stay in Lagos for a bit. Chamberlain, let me remind you of this place. I don't know if you've ever been there. I don't know what it was before you left Lagos. I don't know if Kayla knows this place. But for those who know, this, can you even guess? Yeah. If you can't, let me help you. This is Oshodi. Yes. Don't ask me how the name came about. I'm going to find that out later. But one thing you can say is that this place, Oshodi, was made popular by the popular Oshodi market, located in that same area, a suburb of Lagos, you know. And what is interesting is, and I'm even abashed to find that out myself, that it dates back to the 1860s, 1860 to be precise, under the British colonial rule to support slave trade activities. That's sad. Well, Oshodi was one of the first beneficiaries of the urban boom of the time, and it has seen quite a number of evolution over time. It has seen some very interesting stuff. Now there is traffic again. I remember during the reign or the governance of the second governor of Lagos State in this Fourth Republic, Oshodi was clear. I was surprised to see that you could drive through Oshodi within a minute. But now this is what you have. And of course, we can only hope and continue to hope that we'll get it better ourselves. What do you remember about Oshodi, Chamberlain? I don't know if I should be asking Kayla, because this is one of the tourist places you have to come to.
Every day. You're going to keep rubbing it in.
I'm just saying.
We came up with an agreement. We said we were going to educate me on this.
Please show me the Gazette. You have to show me the Gazette. You have to show me the Gazette of that agreement.
Me didn't teach me anything, and now you come and rub it in on TV. Anyway, this Oshodi place, I have heard about it. I've never been there. I have no idea what happens here. It looks like traffic, so I don't think I want to.
Are you looking well?
I don't know buses in the... Why is everyone on the queue? No.
Okay, you need to look again.
What are those yellow things? They look like buses.
Well, I think it's quite interesting. I mean, you can clearly see that the infrastructure development there, yes, they've got a train system, a bus system. So those are the kind of things that you want cities across the country to also find a way to leverage on, so that, I mean, well, gone are those days where you could pick your pockets in Molwe, in Oshodi.
You see, these are the issues.
So I said, gone at this, don't forget.
They are gone.
Yeah, clear. I mean, with this, you don't see any of those kind of buses anymore, those Molwe buses. But
are those days gone?
Guys,
are those days gone?
Well, I don't know what Chamberlain is talking about, because, you know, but there's something, Chamberlain, right? Okay. Chamberlain, there's something Oshodi is famous for. I know, just like you and some other people. But there's something, if you are not in Oshodi and you're going towards Oshodi and you have to use public transport, not these blue buses and red buses, there is a sound you must hear. If you don't hear it, it's probably not an authentic Oshodi bound bus. You have to hear something like if you haven't heard it that way, it's probably not authentic Oshodi. I'm just saying.
Okay. So clearly we've seen that we can't take that thing out of Ayo. No matter how hard we try.
How well you did it. It's so
goodness.
Can you imagine how many people right now who have left Nigeria? There are many people who have left Nigeria who miss this sound. I just reminded some people. Come on. We know where we're coming from.
Make the sound again. Just
No,
so
no,
we
no,
can
no. Go and
learn it
listen to
from-
the playback. Go and listen to the playback.
Okay, but you know what, guys? Speaking about Lagos, Mr. Dele Farotimi, there's a lot of narrative out there going on right now. Some of the footage available out there about his arrest in his law firm and arrested in Lagos. They say that there was a warrant after. Well, hold on. I'm going to go again. So the image you see right here now is said to have been footage emanating from the arrest of Mr. Dele Farotimi.
So is that his house?
I said it was his office.
Okay, his office. So this was
because,
when he entered inside his office.
Yeah, some persons who were, the policemen who went in there to pick him up. Now, they say that, yes, he's in their custody over allegations of libel. And so that they had they've been trying to get him for a while, and then they couldn't. So they got in there and then arrested him. But the NBA has responded to this, and they put up a statement which was signed by the president of the NBA, Mr. Afam Osigwe, who says that they are gravely concerned that the arrest of Mr. Dele Farotimi on allegations of libel, as well as the reported invasion of his law firm and the harassment of lawyers and staff within the premises. Alongside condemning the action, the NBA said that the allegations of which he was arrested does not constitute an offense in Lagos State. And it says, quote, "We must reiterate that the alleged offense of libel for which Dele Farotimi was reportedly arrested is not recognized as a criminal offense under the laws of Lagos State. The criminal law of Lagos State 2011 repealed the criminalization of defamation by omitting it from its provisions. This progressive legislative move aligns with the global best practices which treats defamation as a civil wrong rather than a criminal offense." And then he went on and cited a case in 2021 of the Supreme Court in which Justice Helen Ogunmiju unequivocally held that defamation ceased to be a criminal offense in Lagos State following the enactment of the criminal law of Lagos State 2011. Now, he's said to have written a book in which there was libel against, I think they said there was a petition by, what's the senior lawyer's name? I'm trying to remember his name, just skipped me now. I'll try to remember. Mr. Afe Babalola had petitioned the police.
Man who owns the university.
So this is where we are at this point in time on this.
I'm seeing
this footage is.
I'm seeing this statement here from the Ekiti State Police Command because apparently he's in Ekiti State. The Ekiti State Police Command is confirming his arrest. They're saying he's undergoing interrogation at the command's headquarters in Ado Ekiti. And you're right, the allegations are defamation of character and cyberbullying. The PPRO there says is informing members of the public that he has been arrested as a result of a petition written against him to the office of the Commissioner of Police, Ekiti State Command, for the allegation of defamation of character and cyberbullying. So they're actually adding things to it. Well, they say he's currently in custody and will be arraigned as soon as the investigation is concluded. But, like you said, that statement there from the NBA also mirrors the same statement that was released by Mr. Femi Falana on this issue yesterday. And so I think this is something that everyone has to start thinking about, He's saying, at least Mr. Falana, that Lagos State is among the 2 states in Nigeria that have decriminalized defamation in its entirety. It's a civil matter. It's something that you should go through the process of law, and of course condemning the fact that people in the police force, or you're able to use the police, if you feel like you've been defamed or what someone has done to you is libelous. That there are actual procedures that are supposed to be gone through, not coming to arrest the person. So I think this is something that we'll be watching as it unfolds. Remember, we have been talking about Nigeria's civic space, and many people are saying that this is shrinking because people are saying it is shrinking, that it's on purpose. It's on purpose, supposed to deny us the ability to say things for fear that what you say might be termed as defamation or cyberbullying. It's a very tricky line, and I want to get Ayo's thoughts on this as well. It's a very tricky line between the freedom of expression and when it comes to defamation and libel and what the law says about how you handle those sorts of issues, you know. And I think we find ourselves crossing from one side to the other from time to time. You know, we forget where someone has the right to criticize you. But
because this government did a lot.
Yes.
During
so people have the right to criticize you. And so when someone criticizes you and then you take it as defamation of character, you know, it brings up a lot of conversations. I want you to be able to get what Ayo thinks about this, because journalists, really, human rights activists, we've been talking about this for quite a while. What can be done? What should be done? And where are we going with this conversation?
Well, the answer lies with all of us, if you ask me. I think one of the challenges that's being dealt with here now is a function of perception. And, you know, let me say again, Chamberlain and Kayla, something that I've often said. When we talk about government, exactly who are we talking about? Remember, not just one person is government. It's a whole load of people. So who are the people that arrested this fellow? Let's decrypt it. And why was he arrested or incarcerated or kept in custody or whatever it is? There is some news that he made comments about one individual and then he was arrested as a result of that based on a petition. Now, we are talking about senior advocates of Nigeria here, and it is, if it is true that it's a letter from a senior advocate of Nigeria and the NBA is raising these issues, then what exactly is going on? So many people, so many of us are right now on trial on this particular matter. Is this because it is the police? Because when we say police, we're not just talking about just one. We're not talking about the IG. We're not talking about Abuja. We're talking about whoever it was that executed that. And in a number of ways, we know that sometimes some of our friends who in the security service, they do what they call the hatchet jobs. So is this a hatchet job, or is this something that was influenced by government or a government official indeed? Those investigations, those comments are very, very important. Now, the term that Mr. Falana used in his comment is decriminalized. In other words, there was a time there was criminal libel. Now it has been decriminalized in Lagos. Are the people who executed this activity, are they aware of that? Thankfully, Mr. Dele Farotimi didn't do anything from what we saw. He was working with them. In that video, he was working, just moving gradually. So it's not, let's decrypt it. Is it government? Who in government did this? Is it from the presidency? Is it from a minister? Who exactly did it? Let us find out. Let us decrypt it, because sometimes it's once we hear government, everyone is up in arms. This has decrypted trust over time. When we say we love Nigeria, exactly who do we love in Nigeria? So let's decrypt it and let's find out exactly who did this and how did this come to be, and not just, as Chamberlain would say, paint us all with one brush. That's my take.
So, if I could also add this one, there was a report, I think it might have missed a lot of people. As a matter of fact, former Commissioner for Foreign and International Affairs in Imo State, he has filed a 5 million naira suit against the Nigerian police at the Federal High Court in Abuja. And guess what? It's over allegation of unlawful arrest and detention. He was a commissioner under Hope Uzodinma's first term. And so he was said to have been arrested in Abuja for certain comments he made by expressing himself and taken to Owerri. You know, so now they're saying, look, release him, grant him bail, and then he's also suing the police. Of course, he went on to cite section 35, subsection 4 and 5, and section 36, subsection 1 of the 1999 Constitution guaranteeing his freedom of expression. And so they feel, look, what is going on? This kind of things cannot be happening under this government, because people know how very vocal. In fact, some say there was no borderline. They crossed every possible line, as a matter of fact. At the time of former President Jonathan, there was a lot of freedom. They spoke freely. And you cannot allow these kind of things be happening. So if anyone is wronged, you go to courts. So you cannot be using the police as a tool in a civil matter. So these kind of things are questions that abound and demand answers. All right, that said, Ayo, take us through some of the dailies this morning.
Controversies around the tax reform bills have not quite abated, going by
what the headlines are saying on the front pages of the papers this morning. Look at the front page of the Daily Independent. Again, House of Reps session turns rowdy over tax reform bills. Protesters storm National Assembly over bills. Ferguson says bills will stifle oil, gas industry. Confirms Port Harcourt refinery is working. The Daily Trust has tax reform. Northern senators demand suspension of action on bills. Reps silence spokesman over support for legislation. Tinubu directs Justice Ministry to work with National Assembly on proposals. Details on the inside pages. New Telegraph. Nerves on end in Green Chamber over controversial tax reform bills. As Reps spokesperson, others' comments spark heated debate. Governor Sule backs some provisions of bills. Dugara Baba Yusuf, others support proposals. Kuka says bill will checkmate elite's recklessness. Ethnic regional slur, name-calling, worrisome. That's coming from the federal government. And look at the front page of this Nigeria newspaper. Don't allow ethnic religious sentiments destroy tax reform bills. That's coming from the FG. Reps in rowdy session. Wider consultations ongoing, says Senator Musa. Details on page 4. The Vanguard newspaper has tax reform bills. Kuka, CITN, NECA, Pengasan suggest way forward, and some other riders on the front page right there. The details you'll find on page 5 of the paper this morning. Look at the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. Tax reform bills. Tinubu directs Justice Ministry, National Assembly to work on concerns, and a few other riders on the front page. Blueprint has this angle. As Governor Sahun stands on tax reform bills, Gagara says North stands to gain $25 billion from livestock. Tinubu directs Justice Ministry to work with National Assembly on concerns. Oyedele explains, Baba Yusuf, Gumi, others say the time is now. Two other stories. Look at the front page of the Nigerian News Direct. Energy transition. We won't stop production of fossil fuels. FD Apple, as Apple reiterates commitment to takeoff of Energy Bank. Alleges Western criticism of fossil fuel aimed at preventing energy sufficiency for Africa. Details on page 13 of the paper this morning. The front page of the Guardian newspaper. Compressed natural gas scheme. Infrastructure deficit slows CNG adoption amid $450 million investment. Details on page 6 of the paper this morning. The front page of the Business Day newspaper. 8 big changes to expect with Lagos electricity law. What all of that means, you'll find details of on the inside pages. The Daily Times newspaper. Senate to probe NNPCL over 8.4 trillion naira withheld subsidy funds. Passes 2025 to 2027 MTET FSP. The details of that you'll find on the inside pages of the paper this morning. These are the papers we have for you today.
Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. As you've seen there, we've got Dr. Charles Omole joining us this morning. He's a lawyer and a security consultant. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so yesterday the Senate confirmed the nomination of Chief of Army Staff. And so definitely he's got a lot of work, to do. And security, there are different questions and narratives about security, among chief of which includes, can we ever get it right with security? Because we know that a lot depends on us getting security right. Development, food security, several things. So having been watching development over time, where do you think we are in the scheme of things?
Thank you. Well, I mean, the security posture in Nigeria seems to have deteriorated over the years. If we go back to independence, but that's a good point to start. At independence, the smallest security outfit we have in Nigeria was actually the military. We are very tiny. The biggest then was the police. That was why when, after the 1966 coup, in fact, the army had to cut the police because the police were present in every local government area. They had the communications link. The military didn't have anything at that time. So much so that they even included some police officers as administrators under the military regime as a way of keeping the police happy. But of course, that led us to the Civil War. After the Civil War, the military was now a lot bigger than it was. They were better equipped. They now have equipment. As a result, they took the ascendancy. So, of course, the military coup successively that happened meant that the military did everything they could to strengthen their position, but more importantly, disempower the police. Because the police was the only other outfit that legally could legitimately carry arms. So, so if anybody could fall in a coup, it was the police. So the more ineffective the police was or is, the less likely they'll be in a position to stop any future military action. So that continued for a long time. And then, so we had the situation, and then the crux now started around 1975, after 75, 76, after the Murtala Mohammed coup. After that, the military conveniently blamed everything on the police. That why didn't you gather intelligence or let us know that a coup was going to take place, even though there was a military intelligence that was let go. So as a result of that, what the military now did to further disempower the police was took what I call the brain box of the police, which was called the special branch. That's their intelligence unit. Carved it completely out of the police, and now they formed what they call the NSO, National Nigerian Security Organization there, which is today's SSS. So once that was taken out of the police, that began the process of what I call cannibalization of the police. Now, a lot of things that the police were doing in 1975, now 6, 7, 9 different agencies are doing those same duties now. So the disaggregation of the policing function into different units has not helped. So if you're looking at it holistically as to where are we as a country, one sentence I think will capture it, and that is, we have become a reactive security organization or country rather than a proactive security posture, which we are supposed to have. Now, and the reactiveness means crime happens, then we chase the criminal. Bandits, they will have wreaked havoc, then we'll start looking for them. What stops us stopping them before they even act? That is, so the number one thing in terms of looking at a solution at the moment is that we need to move away from a national reactive security posture to a proactive security posture. Now, that has 5 legs under it in terms of, effective intelligence gathering, which, doesn't happen at the moment. And even where there are good intelligence is in silos and they don't communicate effectively. The NSA, that's supposed to be the coordinator of national intelligence, is bogged down with so many things now. NSA as an office has become even bigger than many ministries, in terms of what it's supposed to do, what it does, rather. In most other countries, like in the US, the NSA has very narrow remit, which is personal advisor to the president. That's why the framers, even here in Nigeria, exclude the NSA from Senate clearance, unlike ministers, because you're a personal advisor to the president. But now the NSA is doing a lot more things, even more than what many ministries do. So, and when you see that, it means naturally human beings will be distracted when you are, do so many things that are commercially related. So that's intelligent. Secondly, is we need an effective early warning system. We don't have that in Nigeria. So things. I mean, why would 50, 70, 80 Boko Haram criminals ride from the bush on a motorbike through our highways for 3 hours, and nobody reacted to it? They went to a village, stayed there for 2-3 hours, plundered the village, then ride another 2-3 hours back into the bush. Where is our early warning system? It doesn't exist.
So where are, because we have thrown trillions of dollars to security, be it army, over the years, as it were. We have tried to amend the laws for the Nigerian Police Act to see if we could correct some of these things. Where are we missing it?
Well, the issue is not, I mean, in terms of money, the challenge, if I'm to speak frankly, you saw the trend in Africa, in West Africa, right, over the last few years of coups. The fact is that even though we've not had coups in Nigeria, the unwritten rule for any commander-in-chief in Nigeria is keep the military happy. I was told of an incident with the former president where the military came to ask for some special intervention and said, look, we don't have the money. And I was told the army chief looked at the head of state and looked and said, you know, Mr. President, you know, we need to keep the boys happy. And I think the president got the message. They found the money very quickly.
That's subtle.
So the point I'm making is the fact that, you know, police, we ask for something, there'll be debate, they will cut it. Military, we ask, bam, you get it. So there's so many things, therefore, military has been getting. The reason why that doesn't seem to be effective, a couple of things. Number one, corruption in the military is massive.
Wow.
For example, if you're a soldier in the front, you are supposed to get some certain special allowance. But the truth is that if you look at the amount released for each soldier and look at the amount the soldier actually gets, there's a massive difference. You know, so where does it disappear? It disappears somewhere in between. You know, you're talking of oil theft, you know, you're talking of all kinds of things. That can't happen without the collusion of the military. You know, so that, when I mean military, I don't mean the entirety of the military. No, I'm talking of the certain,
some of those some elements there.
There are elements there, yes. You know, and that is a problem. Which the only way I feel that can happen is I remember in 2021 when the House of Reps did the National Security Summit. There are certain recommendations that were, you know, put there. One of the key recommendations relating to this is that the president should instruct this commencement of what I call integrity test among the military. You know, that's a way of weeding out both corrupt people and the moles. And setting up integrity test is a well, you know, tested road. What that simply means, one way of doing it, for example, is you have special unit who pose as enemies of the state and tap different military people for different offers. Okay, I will go say I want to do oil bunkering. You know, I will offer you so and so. Meanwhile, I'm actually an intelligence officer. Through where you look for those who are susceptible to being tempted in that regard, and you prosecute them. By the time that happens a few times, next time somebody comes to you for any criminal intent, you wouldn't know whether they're a real criminal or they're intelligence officers. So that deter a lot of, you know, there's things we can do to weed these things out. But again, we are reactive. We are not proactive. And then the police, which is important, the police are actually doing their best. If, you know, Nigerians, if they understand how, for example, we're talking in Nigeria about police reform, for example. In Nigeria, that's a misnomer. I've come to conclude that, because if you do police reform, are you going to do civil defense reform? Are you going to do, because there are so many, are you going to do road safety reform? Are you going to do NDLEA reform?
Or VIO reform?
Or VIO reform. So the point I make it is, what we need in Nigeria is internal security reform is what we need. Not just police reform. Because what one Egyptian police organization perform, 12 different organizations in Nigeria perform it.
With the confirmation of Lieutenant General Olatubosun, you know, he has some really big shoes to fill, you know, considering what the late Lieutenant General Tari Lagbaja was going through and had to deal with at the time when he unfortunately died. We have a new terrorist group, the recruits, Lukarwa. There's a tight economy that many people are afraid would lead to an increase in crime and criminality. You know, and then just basically a lot of issues, a lot of fronts that the military is facing, one form of attack or the other. As he comes into office right now, what should he be having at the back of his mind. I'd never forget Chamberlain, the day when Mr. Lagbaja's body landed, and he was standing by that coffin and just looking at it. And it was clear that it dawned on him, I think, at that moment, that there's a lot of work to be done here and a lot of chances that he has to take. With everything that is going on, how should he be positioning himself, and what direction should they be going in as the Nigerian army?
Well, I don't envy his shoes at the moment, with Chief of Army Staff. And quite frankly, I don't think the major problem really is the effectiveness of our military. The boys in uniform and the girls in uniform, they are very effective in what they do. But the challenge we've always had for the past 20 years in terms of fight against terrorism and all these things is the military are there to do one particular role. They're not there to keep the peace after. So, okay, so you drive terrorists out of a village. They move to the next village. Yeah. Who sustains the peace in the village they're living? So it's a vicious cycle. So in fact, if you read some reports I've read where the military have gone to the same village 2, 3, 4, 5 times, reclaiming it. Because after a few months, the terrorists are back, then they drive them out again, then the terrorists will come back again. So I don't see that changing unless we empower our police. They're the ones that's supposed to keep the peace.
What about this school of thought that empowering the police, yes, but and then that they even ought to empower them to the extent that they will be the one leading the charge, restoring internal security, and that the police, the army, it's tantamount to weakening the army by allowing them perform some of these internal security roles, because their training is external aggression. And so we need to draw the line, and by so doing, we'll get it, at least take it a notch higher in ensuring that we get a lot more right there.
No, you're absolutely right. I think the police needs to be empowered in terms of resources. Right now, they don't have enough of the resources. In terms of manpower, right now, they don't have enough of the manpower. The military under the previous administration were practically getting everything they asked for. The police we're not that lucky. So the issue here really is that the army are now used to performing policing function. They are overstretched. I remember when Lieutenant General Atahiru was being confirmed, I was advising the House of Representatives at that time on security matters. When we went to the closed door session asking about, trying to confirm all the service chiefs at that time, one of the key things you will discover is the lack of the competition even within the military. At that time, Atahiru was championing for Army aviation, and Chief of Air Staff was opposing it in the closed door session. That's our job. But the problem is the fact that, of course, they now have the Army aviation that they asked for. But the challenge at that time was that if they need air cover, the bureaucracy within the Air Force, before the air cover arrives, the terrorists were gone. So the Army said, look, we need our own Army aviation. So there was this competition among them. And one of the things he complained about at that time, I remember, was, look, we're overstretched. Then was operating in 28 states. Now they're even operating more states than that. So really, the military are encroaching into policing function. And the police do not have the resources to do the job they're supposed to do. They're supposed to be given more resources.
What do you make of this call for state police? Will it help in any way? Where does that leave us?
Call for state police, that, I remember, best way to put it, I remember speaking to a deputy governor some months back. And by the time I broke down this state police thing to him, he said, I don't think we want it though.
He said he doesn't want it?
They don't want it, because I said, listen, number one, I started by saying, policing in Nigeria was not always centralized, right? When Uronzi became the president, the head of state in 1966, he made 3 layers of policing: the Nigerian police force, the regional police, and what they call local native police. So there were 3 layers of policing. And then there were all manner of complaints about especially the local police, how the chiefs, the emirs use them for all the things, attack opponents and everything. So Uronzi set up an expert panel, and he was advised that the only solution they see is to centralize the police. So we centralized the police finally in 1968, But when the police was centralized, what happened was the prison was also centralized because the prisons were local at that time as well. So the issue here is that if you have state police, because most of our crimes in Nigeria are state crimes. In fact, more than 90% are state crimes. So if you have state police, by nature, you must have state prison. Because you can't have state police, prosecute somebody on state crime, and send them to federal prison. So, and I began to break it down to the governors, the costs. It's not just about the police. It's about now have to build new prison infrastructure, you know, and then you have to build new courts. You know, all the costs is not just about police alone. But at the end of the day, I feel we are having a synthetic argument, whether it's state police or not state police, is the inability of the police so far to, I think, to deliver on community policing. That's what's causing this problem. I mean, because at the end of the day, whether you call them state police, community police, if I'm safe in my community, I don't care who does the job.
When you talk to the military about, and not just the military, even members of the police force, when you talk to them about, you know, fighting insecurity in their states, and of course, you know, making sure that these local crimes do not spread and become worse, which is what we've seen right now. One of the things they always tell you is that, look, we do kinetic. The non-kinetic side of this argument is not being adhered to. And these days, they're not even shy about saying it. They're very open when they say, look, we do our part. We may have some issues. We may be reactionary in the way we handle these things. But the truth is, if the non-kinetic bit of this discussion is handled, we wouldn't be doing as much work. And these policing functions that we're doing shouldn't even be something that we're doing at all. That non-kinetic bit of it, is there any way we can get this done? Because it's almost as though it depends on the whims and caprices of the person who's in power.
Yeah, actually, what you touched on is what I called what I called for a few weeks back, when I said the president needs to put together a system of security impact assessments of all government policies and major projects. The president can do that within a week. No project or policy will be approved by FEC without security impact assessment. What do I mean by that? It talks about what you just said. There's no point in kinetics solving the problem, and government policies are throwing more people into criminality unwittingly. So let me take a very simple example. Let's say the government say we want to double tariffs on imported cars, for example, just as an example. Now, that looks like a simple fiscal policy. Now, under the system I'm calling for, you have to do the security impact assessment of that policy. That may now come back and say, okay, as a result of this policy, used car prices will double. Fewer people will be able to afford cars. Car crimes will go up by 20%. I'm just using as an example. So if that is now presented as the impact that if you pursue this policy, it means car crimes will go up by 20%. So government can proactively, which is the thing I was talking about, take steps to mitigate that fact before that policy comes to effect. But what we do in Nigeria, government will just announce policy, they will just do it. You now see the 20% increase in crime. Police, everybody started running around to do criminal. Many of these things are foreseeable, because there are economic policies of governments that create these things. I remember reading a report during that 2001 House of Reps summit I was talking about Boko Haram, and one of these from somebody who was arrested and interviewed. You know, and was asked, why did you join Boko Haram? He said he got home one day, he found a man with his wife. So he decided to report the man to the police, local police in the village. And then the next thing is he that the police came to arrest, he claimed. Oh, dear. And then he was in prison for almost a month, police custody for almost a month. He claimed he was tortured. So when he left, he said he told himself he would avenge his treatment by the police. So when he was approached to join Boko Haram, he quickly joined. And when he graduated from the training, guess the first place he attacked with the police unit in the village. So you could see that. So not all of them are Islamic fundamentalists, is what I'm saying. You know, different things drove people to join those groups. It's not just about religion. So, which is what I'm saying, that there are government policies that push people. I mean, at one time, Boko Haram was reported to be paying their soldiers $100 a month. Yeah. Yes, in his stipend. So if that is happening, I mean, even police in a village, you struggle not to, you know, to try and fight that. So the issue really is the fact that we need a more proactive. Let me finish that thing of thought in terms of proactive. I said there are 5 elements to it. One, I said, is intelligence. Number 2 is early warning system, which we need to know what's happening early. Number 3, we need a rapid response team. One of the things that happens is that if there's a major security incident in this place now, you'll be surprised that they have to start calling different divisions to mop up men who will respond. There's no standby team, which is what this current IG is trying to address with the Special Intervention Squad. But again, that also needs resources to get it to work. It hasn't. Then, of course, we need effective judicial system. When it takes 10 years to prosecute somebody, that kind of embolden the criminals because they know that's a long time. And the longer it takes, the more they will fall through the cracks. And finally, there's effective strategic communication. It's one of the things all governments in Nigeria have always failed at, being able to communicate simple ways to Nigerians to understand exactly what they are doing.
Yeah, that's a big one. It's a big one. Well, Ayo's got questions as well. Go ahead, please.
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. He just baited me with that comment on effective communication, because it's one thing that I always like to talk about, because without it, for me, I think communication is like the blood in your body. It's there. You don't know it's there until you see it. When you see it, you know there's a problem, but it's there. That's the way communication is. Anyway, we'll come back to that one. Well, Dr. Yore, Dr. Mure, one of the things that you said earlier about internal security reforms hit me hard. And I'd like to begin from there, if you don't mind. So when you talk about internal security reforms, exactly what is going to be different? Because the challenge we've had over time, we have reported on this platform over time, is lack of or inadequate collaboration. It is known that the police is the lead agency for internal security, but we also know that the military is quite strong in that area as well. You also talked about the military performing policing functions. So who should be the leading agency or the lead agency when we have to talk about internal security? Are these part of the reforms you're talking about?
Yes, thank you. It is true that when I say internal security reforms, what I mean by that is, I think it is settled fact in Nigeria that we are going to have the splinters of different security organizations. Trying to say you want to merge them together, for example, might be a political fight that no president wants to fight at this stage. But what you do is you look at a country like United States. United States has at last release a couple of months ago, have close to 19,000 police departments in the U.S. In the U.S., the police, the campus can have their police, estate have their police, everybody have the policing function. But what 9/11 taught them was that they found out that the names of all the terrorists, who did the 9/11, were in different databases of different security agencies in the U.S. But they were in those silos, so they were not talking to each other. So one of the Homeland Security reform that was brought into bear at that time was that they now created this layer called Department of Homeland Security. Now, two things happened instantly. Number one, all the police departments in the country were mandated to keep their data in a particular format. That's number one. Number two, the Homeland Security now created a super database that harvests data from all the thousands of police departments on a daily basis. So if you commit a crime in Texas, in 48 hours, they will know in New York that you committed a crime. So that layer is what we don't have in Nigeria. We have silos of intelligence from customs to immigration to police to, for example, take the issue of private security organizations in Nigeria, all the private security firms. They are managed by not by the police, but by the civil defense. But you can't easily access their data unless you go through civil defense. It's not easily readily shared. So and then the second thing we don't have in Nigeria, we don't have what I call duty to share. I've been in situations where either police, DSS have said, look, we're not sharing that with we don't trust them. So what that means is, there's no law in Nigeria compelling them to share intelligence. As a result, they share what they want to share and they keep the rest to themselves. So what is lacking in Nigeria is that overlay. Now, naturally, the NSA is supposed to be the coordinator of national intelligence on paper. But like I told you, the NSA office is now doing so many things, from the small arms proliferation to National Counterterrorism Center. You know, those are things that almost operationalizing the NSA. The last NSA, thank God, you know, the Buhari did not agree. The last NSA, Mungono, actually proposed to the government at that time that that he wants to have a interagency strike force that he will be controlling. And I saw that, what's going on here? Another strike force? You know, just like the DSS that are supposed to be purely intelligence, they are now operationalized. They now have their own. So it's a cacophony of confusion we have in our security space. So what needs to be done is for an authority to be brought over all of them, who is able to access all their records and databases, you know, then be able to make informed decisions on behalf of the country.
Well, Dr. Imore, I'm not sure you quite answered my question, because what role then should the police be playing if the police also has to have another layer of authority over it? We know the president is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, and whether we like it or not, the police is armed. So who are we then whittling? Then are we giving up on the police? Are we saying that the police is incapable of performing these functions? You talked about us needing to strengthen the police force. Does that mean that if we create this layer of authority you're talking about, the police is going to answer to that? I'm trying to understand so that people can get a better picture of what you're saying here.
Okay. Now again, like I said, I'm using the US as an example. I mean, the police will always remain the way they are. You know, this layout authority I'm talking about is not operational. It's more of intelligence hub, is what I'm saying. Because if police arrest somebody today, are they able to know when the president...
My apologies. Doesn't that also mean, just 1 second, doesn't that also mean that we are already giving up on the police? Because the police has its own intelligence system. In fact, I hold the position, I hold the opinion that the police has, for instance, the EFCC. There is a CID, a criminal investigation department. They have their own intelligence. They have their own, fraud unit. The anti-fraud unit. They have all of these units. And for one reason or the other, some of these powers have been, should I say, agencies are created out of the police for one reason or the other. Isn't that saying that already we are giving up on the police in these areas?
Well, okay. I mean, I'm open in terms of how it's done. I mean, one option is to make the police the head of this orb. The key point, the key factor I'm saying really that we need to do right now is what I'm saying is that if police arrest somebody today, how easy are they to know? How easy do they know when the person entered the country? Was the person arrested by customs for something they did? As the military had any dealings with this person, they are blind to all those information, is what I'm saying. So what's happening right now is the police, even within the police itself, if you're arrested in Abuja, immediately the police wouldn't know whether you were arrested last week in Oyo State. So this sort of silos is what's causing problem, is what I'm saying. So there's a need for a hub that really brings together all this information. So which means all these agencies must be made to store their data in a particular format. Then there has to be, I'm not in favor of creating too many another agency. So it might very effectively be the police then. But there has to be a mopping up data across all the security institutions.
So some kind of centralization, is that what you're talking about here right
exactly.
now? Okay. Now, perhaps, I don't know what you make of this, was something that we chatted about before we started the program. I didn't know what you make of it. You talked about the police arresting someone earlier. Now, we know that a lawyer has been arrested in Lagos by the police command from another state, this time Ekiti State. Now, the question, we understand that there is a law that decriminalizes an activity under which this fellow was arrested. But there is also the context of the fact that that defamation has gone online. What do you make of that conundrum? So on the one hand, it was a libel that was performed. That's one thing. But that libel goes online, it becomes cyberbullying, or doesn't it? Help us understand that, so that maybe this will help people to watch their rhetorics when they're speaking.
Well, I mean, clearly in law, you look for the easiest way to get your own way. I mean, for example, a very good example is a chieftaincy matter, for example. We know in chieftaincy matter, that's a state affair. So only the state courts have jurisdiction over it. But somebody who is fighting over chieftaincy matter can go to federal high court and say, I want to enforce my fundamental rights over that chieftaincy matter. So that's a backdoor way of federalizing a state matter. So, there are kinds of, mischief that takes place in law. But I think this is, that in that case, it's a matter for the court to decide. But in terms of police procedure, in this case, I don't see a situation where police will come to Abuja, arrest somebody and drive them to Imo, or come to Abuja, arrest somebody and drive them to Port Harcourt. Logistically, it's expensive, it's not necessary. So all they simply needed to do is tell the command of that state, we need to question AB. The person will be called in for questioning. The questioning can even be done remotely via video conferencing.
Is it possible that it's done to intimidate?
Well, it's a possibility. It's a possibility that inconvenience factor is one of the reasons. Now, it's getting better in the police. I remember in those days when police used to match young people to what's it called, POS, or what do you call it? Where they get money. ATMs and all that. And when you don't budge. In those days, we saw police, years back, the police will arrest you for armed robbery. And then when I remember questioning one of my research, those police officers, I said, but this person is an armed robber. He said, guy, I know. So why did you arrest him? He said, well, I know that I will mess up his life for the next 2 years.
Whoa.
So in those cases, 99% of them are dismissed by the courts because the prosecution, they don't even show up in court.
But they'll give you small trouble.
But the problem is you'll be in remand for months. For a while. Your life is messed up. So you look at it for 10,000 naira. Let me just pay it.
Wow.
So the issue is not whether they think they could win the case. The issue was the inconvenience factor. So that may play, be a play here.
A few things have come up there. Much as the police argue that libel and cyberbullying. So for libel or defamation, assuming, Lagos law clearly says it's decriminalized, it's a civil matter, not a criminal offense. But if they then argue that, what about cyberbullying? If it's online, it's got no jurisdiction. That's on the one hand. But I'm trying to lump it because of time. Additionally, the police also say that they invited him, but maybe he didn't honor the invitation. But he put up a statement, Mr. Farotimi, saying, quote, I must reiterate that I am a law-abiding citizen. I have consistently honored every lawful invitation by the Nigeria Police Force. However, these recent developments targeting my associates, tracking my phone, and harassing innocent individuals are deeply concerning. It has therefore become clear, and it is no longer hidden, that there are policemen from Ekiti Police Command who are currently working out, blah, 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 that was before his arrest. And I says, assuming there is even a charge, it does not take a lawyer to point out the law enforcement officers going around arresting people connected to me. He says he has a reason to be afraid for his life. So many things in that particular scenario. And add to the fact that an SAN who is said to have been the one who reported the case, a responsible citizen. So you wonder, would he be party to the processes and how all of this?
Well, first of all, I must say that, when we talk about police doing something, usually when that case is reported, I'm sure you have a picture of the Inspector General of Police next to that to report. The truth is that he probably doesn't know what's going on about this. So because a lot is happening at the top that that doesn't get disseminated properly down to their team, and vice versa. So in this case, I would say that the case of we don't know what charge will be. So the charge could completely be cyberbullying, for example, alone, without putting defamation
or libel.
So we don't know. But
the police mentioned to journalists libel and defamation, and then added cyberbullying.
But that might be the basis of the petition. And in Ekiti State, it's not unlike Lagos. It is still criminalized. So clearly, they might be acting purely on the state statute. But the question is, where did he infraction take place? Lagos. How does that affect it? These are all legal stuff that can easily be addressed. But the point I'm trying to make here is this: the current leadership of Nigerian police are trying to reform the system. It's going to take time, but more importantly, it's going to take a lot more resources than they currently have. So my advice to the president is, please give the police as much resources as they need. They have the means, they have the know-how. You just need the resources.
But if it's about investigations, as you suggested, you can interview remotely.
That's
if
correct.
you don't want to intimidate and harass the person or them to interpret it as such, do this.
Do they have the technology?
We can give them Zoom.
It's part of what I'm trying to say here, there are resources. Because to do that means not just the other hand, both ends must have the technology to communicate with each other.
We have citizens that can donate Zoom.
Please, let's start adopting police. Adopt the police. Let's adopt them and begin to give them resources they need. But they need our support.
Always a pleasure to have you on, Dr. Charles Omole, security expert and the lawyer. So that's why we had to bring that part in. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you, Father.
So Business Morning comes up now.
Well, hello and welcome to another trading day in December. The markets are open in Lagos. What trade are you going to make today? Are you going to be trying to buy low to sell high? Hopefully you find that sweet spot. But let's get to the top stories that set your agenda now. We see oil prices rose more than 2% today as Israel threatened to attack the Lebanese state. If its truce with Hezbollah collapses, as investors are positioning for OPEC Plus to announce an extension of supply cuts this week. So we see a big jump there, 2.5% for Brent crude, $73.62 a barrel. Brent still staying above that $70 psychological level. WTI crude almost above the $70 range there, $69.94 a barrel. A bigger move up for WTI, 2.7%. We see OPEC Plus, which accounts for about half of the world's oil production, has been looking to gradually unwind supply cuts through next year. However, the prospect of a market surplus has pressured oil prices, with Brent trading nearly 6% below its average for December 2023. So all eyes on this oil market today. Let's look at the FX market now. We see trading continued on the electronic foreign exchange matching system. That's the FM's platform. And again, NFM closes unchanged. Second day now, 1,672 naira to the dollar, closed at the previous range. I wonder what that's saying to us. But is this the stability we're looking for in the official window? For the NAFEX, that's up 0.87%. Again there, 1,658 naira to the dollar. Well, to other stories now, as President Bola Tinubu prepares to present the 2025 budget to the National Assembly next week, the Senate on Tuesday gave its approval to the 2025-2027 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper submitted earlier by the president. This decision was based on the adoption of a report presented during plenary by the Senate's Joint Committees on Finance and National Planning and Economic Affairs, led by Senator Sani Musa. This was even as the Red Chamber mandated its committees on finance, petroleum, and petroleum downstream, as well as the gas sector, to investigate reports from the Revenue Mobilization Allocation Fiscal Responsibility Commission, alleging that the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited withheld 8.48 trillion naira as claimed subsidies for petrol. It noted that the investigation would address the Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, NATI, report stating that NNPCL failed to remit $2 billion in taxes to the federal government. The Senate further directed its committees to verify the total cumulative amount of unremitted revenue under recovery from the sale of premium motor spirits, PMS, also known as petrol, by the NNPCL between 2020 and 2023. And in a move to enhance financial inclusion and revolutionize the digital payment landscape in Nigeria, United Bank for Africa, on behalf of the Nigeria Interbank Settlement System, alongside several other banks and financial institutions, have successfully hosted the inaugural
annual general meeting of the NQR Industry Committee. In a statement, the lender said the collaboration aimed to provide a seamless, secure, and efficient payment solution for Nigerians, reinforcing the nation's push towards a more inclusive and digital economy. According to the statements, the NQR, that's Quick Response Payment Solution, a cutting-edge innovation, is designed to simplify payment process for consumers and businesses alike, offering a secure and user-friendly experience. Additionally, it allows consumers to make transactions by scanning QR codes directly from their bank mobile applications, catering to a wide array of use cases such as retail payments, transportation, utility bills, and small business operations. All right, so our first conversation now. Lagos, Nigeria's commercial capital, has been experiencing a surge in property rents in recent years. The rising cost of renting a home or office space in Lagos has become a major concern for residents, businesses, and policymakers. The increasing rent is attributed to various factors, including inflation and currency devaluation. Well, let's get a check on some of the prices so far. So if you're trying to get a new 3-bedroom flat in an area such as Ojodu, you're looking at between 2.5 million to 3 million naira, 1 year rent. Ogba area, new 3-bedroom, 2.5 to 3 million, same range. Then, I don't know if you remember the old times, Lekki Phase 1, you could get a brand new flat for about 3 million. Not so long ago, but now in Lekki Phase 1, you need to have at least 8 million to 13 million naira to get a flat to rent. You're not buying. GRA Ikeja, new 3-bedroom flat, 8 million to about 13 million naira. So these are new houses, definitely new developments. The older ones are also trying to catch up, with these prices. But let's bring in Matthew Otta now. He's the CEO of Monile Lawyer. That's a real estate advisory company. Great to have you on the show. Good morning.
Good morning, Daddy. It's a pleasure to be on the show.
Yeah, so Mr. Matthew, quite interesting prices we're seeing there for rentals in major areas in Lagos. What would you say are the main factors contributing to the rising property rent in Lagos State?
You said it all, inflation. Without inflation, we have this issue that is not a problem. Everywhere that you're dealing with properties in Nigeria, especially, inflation has wreaked so much havoc on everything. Cost of building materials, cost of buying things, mortgage. It's also a big problem that anybody that is about to set up anything that has to do with property now, or buying a house, has to deal with high inflation. In the last 5 years, inflation concerning housing has wreaked serious havoc from 15% to 91%. Cost of housing 5 years ago or renting a house was probably affordable. Now it affects everything people are doing. Somebody buying roofing sheets, somebody buying cement, somebody buying sand. Everything has increased astronomically, and you don't expect the landlord to say, oh, because he has spent so much money, he's going to sympathize with the tenants and reduce the amount. It's not going to happen. If the government comes down on so many things, then things will be better. You're also going to look at the cost of agency fees, legal fees, people from environment, people from building plan approval, all adding money into everything the landlord is doing. At the end of the day, the landlord cannot really sustain it building a property. Somebody is buying owning a property worth 100 million now. How much do you expect him to make back in the next 20 years? Probably 5 million, 10 million. At the end of the day, he's going to factor all the other costs that is wreaking so much havoc on him and pass it on to the consumer, which is the tenant. And at the end of the day, we can't really do much about it.
Right.
The government has that empathy to reduce the cost of so many things.
Okay, so we know it's inflation, currency devaluation, playing into these prices we're seeing. But are you sure there's no dose of profiteering in there?
There will always be profiteering. When you go to a location that is catchy, okay, let's talk about Lagos now. You want to rent a property in Lekki Phase 1. It's a high catchment area. There's so much demand. There's money on the ground. You don't expect the landlord to say, oh, I'm going to reduce my money because there are so many people interested in it. It's about cutting your quota according to your size right now. Since the inflation is so bad and people are profiting from it, you have to now shift. For example, now somebody is staying somewhere in Aja right now, in Lagos, and at the end of the day, the person is paying 2 million. And because of the way things have been in the last 1 year, the landlord will definitely increase his rent to 3.5. Always remember, anybody that is renting a property always thinks of the first year when there is money. Whether he has won a contract, betting, whether he has done something from abroad, money has come in. He has the money to pay the agents, has the money to pay the legal fees, he has the money to pay the rent. The landlord is looking at him that, oh, this person can pay for it. That tenant is not thinking of year 2. That tenant is not thinking of year 3. That, oh, what if I don't have this amount of money? How am I going to sustain it? The agents are there to cash in because they know that if this person cannot sustain it, another person that has money for year 1 will definitely pay money to get that property. So when you look at profiteering, you have to look at all the factors. People that have money from maybe crypto, people that have money from different ways, they will always splash money for year 1. No matter how bad the place is. You just mentioned Lekki phase 1. Somebody will have 13 million to pay for a property this month. Next year, the person is not probably going to have that money. Who do you think will cash in? It's both the landlords, the agents, the lawyers, the government, everybody. So it's a wrecking situation, and it's a ripple effect that is affecting everybody. If the government does not work or play with situations whereby they have empathy to work on certain situations to reduce the cost of all these things, such as building cost materials, their agencies going around to collect extra money, you will always have this spiraling effect of high rents. And we are talking of 2024 now. Have you thought of 2025? Have you thought of 2026? It will always go higher and higher and higher.
And it's quite interesting. It's quite interesting. We're seeing some level of stability in the FX market. If you're looking at the official window, inflation still elevated at this time. And, talking about, most of these tenants not looking at the second year payment. Once they have that first year payment, they're good at this point. Because I've looked at the market. Most of the new properties, they're gone at this point, even with the high rental rate. So you've alluded to the fact that, some of these tenants, they just pay the first year. They don't care what's going to happen, in the second year. So looking at this market now, is it getting to a point where a state of emergency needs to be declared at some point with the real estate market?
Yes, a state of emergency has to be declared. Because the truth is that, I'm sorry I have to say this, the government is also involved in this crisis. Most of these big houses that you see, most of these fancy houses are owned by government officials, owned by civil servants, owned by people that have been in government. It's an opportunity for them to siphon money and invest in housing. We just heard about how EFCC sees like 700 and something houses owned by people. Who do you think they will rent it to? They will rent it to the rich and affluent. They will rent it to people that can pay for all these things. It's a way they can sustain their lifestyle after they leave government. But at the end of the day now, it's affecting everything. Do you think the same people that are cashing in on this system will be the ones that will now say, oh, we want to reduce the price? No, they are profiting from it. If they have that ability to say, oh, you know what? Cost of things are so expensive. The common man cannot afford all these things. How do we do things to reduce certain things? Subsidy does not have to only deal with fuel. In UK, they subsidize food, they subsidize transportation. You can subsidize cement, you can subsidize sand, you can subsidize other things that will make an average person build a house or be able to rent. But if you don't subsidize this thing, there's always going to be that ability that I must cash in. We live in a society that everybody takes advantage of another person. So when you now don't have any soft landing in any way, everybody is going to take advantage of it. At the end of the day now, people that are living in Lekki, if the money is too much, you ship to mainland, probably Egbeda. If the money in Egbeda is too much, you ship to Ajagbadi. Where your money it is, that's how it is.
So at some point, you get shifted out of Lagos. As you keep on shifting, at some point you'll be shifted out of the state, as a whole. But talking about taking advantage of people, we've seen a new trend with agents, property agents. You're looking for a property, you start talking to an agent maybe on the internet. They're asking you for 10,000 naira inspection fee. What's up with that at this point? Because you've not even seen the house, you've not even been taken to, on any tour. But the first thing they want is 10,000 naira or 20,000 naira inspection fee. Is that the way to go?
I've been in this business for almost 20 years, so I've weighed both of them. Now, this person asking you for 10,000 naira is also looking at a situation whereby I don't have money for fuel. The cost of fuel has increased. Normally, back then, they would tell you, no problem, meet me in social place. How much will it cost for them to take a bus ride to a particular place? Now, fuel is 1,000 something. And you're telling him that he should meet you in a particular place without you funding him. Where is he going to get the money if you don't rent that place? If 10 people come to him and say, okay, please come to this place and meet me, and he spends an average of 1,000 naira, 1,000 naira, and all the tenants, proposed tenants, none of them pick the place, who is going to take that hit in his wallet? That is why they ask for it. Although it's unethical, it is not right. But you have to look at the poverty situation. You have to look at the economic situation, that this has pushed them to stop thinking like rational human beings and start thinking of how to extract money to set them up. You have the professional agencies that will say no problem. The Dele Farotimi, the Taiwos and the rest. Those ones are big companies that have the ability to sustain any transportation shop. But a layman on the road that just started this agency business and probably has only 3,000 in his account, and you tell him, okay, come to this place, come and show me the house, you don't rent it. Come to another place, show me this place, you don't rent it. Who is going to pay for that thing? That is why they ask for it. It is very unethical. It doesn't make any sense. But at the end of the day, you have to look at it from their own point of view, that inflation has wrecked their wallet. Inflation has also killed them. They cannot afford it. They cannot sustain it. So you have to sympathize with them in that situation. At the same time, you have agency regulation body that has an organization whereby they register agents, and they know professional agents from the quacks or the people on the road. Most people prefer to go to the quacks on the road, the layman. Nobody wants to go to the professional because they know the professional will build them. So they rather look for somebody on the road that they can easily push around and say, show me this, show me that. So that is the reason why you have these agents asking you for this money. If you meet a luxury agent now that does not charge you anything, say, no problem, I have the car, I'll put you inside AC, I'll take you to this place. When it's time for you to pay the agency fee and the agent tells you you're paying me 5% of probably 7 million, what will you do? You can't argue because you're the one that put yourself in that situation. But you rather negotiate with somebody charging you 10,000 naira and say, okay, at the end of the day, I will give you 100,000, I'll give you 200,000. It's a catch-22 situation. So everybody's always trying to take advantage of another person.
Right.
So don't feel too sorry for them or it's hard on them. It's the situation of things on the ground.
Right. I guess it's a dog-eat-dog situation.
Dog-eat-dog situation, yes.
Right now. But we'll keep tracking this industry from time to time to see how these prices go. Hopefully some stability at some point. But it's great having you, Matthew Otta, CEO, Omonile Lawyer. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll take a quick break now. When we come back, more conversations right here on Business Morning. Just stay with us. All right, big news. Yesterday, Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu officially signed the Lagos Electricity Bill into law, setting the stage for a revolution in power supply that will transform the state into a 24-hour economy. The ceremony, which was carried out at the Lagos House, alongside Ikeja, had in attendance the State Deputy Governor, Kadri Hamzat, Chairman of the Energy Committee, Sabir Oluwa, Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice Lawal Pedro, members of the State Assembly, as well as the State Executive Council members. Governor Sanwo-Olu commended the State House of Assembly for ensuring speedy passage of the bill, described the new law as a paradigm shift that will reshape the power landscape in the state. Take a listen.
We want, at the end of the day, for Lagosians to be the full beneficiary of what this bill is about. For our citizens to be able to look at us 1 year, 2 years down the line and say that, Mr. Governor, at Lagos State, Mr. House of Assembly, all of the operators, you have earned our support. You have earned our trust. You guys have done what has eluded us for several decades. We all can see lights, affordable, accessible, all around our state. That is the main objective. An objective where we want to improve and develop the energy infrastructure of our states. And once we do that, we know what it will transform into economic benefit of the citizens, into ensuring that people can have better security network in terms of making Lagos a true 21st century economy, not being scared or worried about lights or illumination in some part of the city or not, but more importantly for small businesses that do not need to have 3 different energy sources. You have a backup or a backup to a backup.
Well, joining us now for expectations for the Lagos economy with the signing of the Lagos Electricity Bill into law is Mr. Mukhtar Mohammed, CEO, Finance with Mukhtar. Great to have you in the show. I don't know if you're already feeling the 24-hour power vibe at this point, but talk to me. How much of a game changer is this for the Lagos economy?
Thank you, Laddie. We are in Band A, so we know what we are feeling. It's not the light this time around, it's the payment. So when you talk about the 24 hours economy, I think that's good for us. We've seen that, this bill has been signed almost a year. Lagos State is now coming up. I think Osun State or Ogun State or Ekiti State have started theirs. Just the initial process, which has to do with the signing. There's still a lot of work to be done because it's not going to be that easy project. When it comes to power, it's not like the telecom that you just put in my house and everything will be working. So there's still going to be a lot of work to be done. But again, you have to give it to Lagos State. That's the first thing, is to sign it into law so that you begin to attract the right type of investors that want to invest in the power sector. Hopefully, this law will be a private sector driven law, not like some of the laws that the government will want to become the owner of a power plant or the one that want to generate electricity. Hopefully, they will deal with professionals and get this bill that is signing to law to become very efficient, and Lagos should be able to enjoy 24 hours electricity.
And talking about investors coming in, what investment opportunities are you seeing, with the signing of this bill into law?
Laddie, the power sector is one of those great investment avenues that Nigerians have not really tapped into. Again, this also will create other little businesses. The power sector is very wide. So for Lagos State to sign that bill, I think is commendable, and that will improve foreign direct investors, not even portfolio investors this time, because Lagos State has been the pride of foreign direct investment. This will also increase that drive of foreign investors into Lagos State. So I think it's a good one. But like I said, they must look at the PPP model, public-private partnership. That will be what will make it work. And also they have to look at the technicality of that so that we don't make the mistake they made during the unbundling of the power sector in Nigeria, whereby most of these licenses were given to political appointees setting up companies to acquire this license, thinking that it's a cash cow without looking at the investment angle. So in terms of that, Lagos must also be able to bring in the right people to invest in the sector, people that have both technical and financial ability to invest, because that is the key driver in the power sector.
All right, let's pivot now from that. Let's pivot to the market now. For the all-share index yesterday, we saw a marginal drop, even though the first trading day of December started quite bullish. How are you seeing the second trading day, and what is it telling us about the month of December for the equities market?
Laddie, the equity market has not changed its trend in the month of December. The month of December, especially the first 2 to 3 weeks, you always see this downturn movement in the equity market, either because of the festivity, either because of portfolio reshuffling. A lot of things happen during this period, and again, with the recent data that you have more retail investors in the market than institutional investors. So that also is one of those things that you need to look at also. So definitely you see a lot of trading this period because a lot of investors will be looking at taking profit, looking at the festivity, January school fees, especially for the retail investors. So definitely for the next 3 weeks, you're going to see the market oscillate up and down, creating good opportunity for investors to go into some equity that have come down. Then also, it is a time that investors look at the year end, the third quarter result, and in anticipation of the year end, especially for stocks that are going to pay good dividend. And you see those stocks you start seeing those movements in those stocks in terms of capital appreciation by January towards the release of the result, which normally will happen between February and March. So investors will begin to key in. So for now, you continue to see that ups and downs, but definitely by the third week of December, you see a little bit of stability. By December ending and first week of January, definitely stability key in, especially in equity that are paying good dividend payout. Investors begin to look at those equities.
And looking at that downturn we saw yesterday, we know Aradel Holdings contributed to that with a big drop, about 8% yesterday. And we know the price Aradel listed at, when it got listed on the NGX, about 800 to 700 naira. But we're far from there at this point. Do you think the bottom is in for Aradel Holdings?
Yes, the bottom is in there. If you look at even at the closing price now, there was a time that Aradel, sometime this time it closed at about 347 before you saw the upward strength about 517. And with what we are seeing now, that stock still has a lot in it. The third quarter result have come in. They paid interim dividend. So a lot of investors are sticking in their stocks, and again, it's very liquid, and that's the beauty compared to other oil stocks that have been listed before now. This is a very liquid stock, and you could see the movement in terms of availability and liquidity in that. So that makes it very attractive for investors. So, but if it is bottom up, I think it has bottom up. Anything you say, you get Aradel, almost when you talk about the listing price and what it is today, you've seen now almost 50% discount. So, and then remember, people have projected this stock to get as high as 1,800. So it gives room for more for designing investors to begin to key in towards this capital appreciation and good dividend payout, which is expected to happen in Aradel because they are very liquid in the oil and gas sector. And Ladi, one thing most investors are not keen into in Aradel at the moment is that game changer that may come in anytime in this year or the first quarter of the year. The Renaissance Group, which were denied the prospective license of, they denied an asset of a major oil company that is divesting from Nigeria. That process is still on, and Aradel are part of that team. So if that see the light of day, definitely it will be a game changer. But as it stands now, I think Aradel has bottomed up for designing investors to begin to key in when you're looking at capital appreciation and also when you're looking at good dividend payout. But again, the projection should be long term if you really want to get value from Aradel.
Right. So I guess Mr. Mukhtar is not seeing a falling knife when we're looking at that stock. But thank you so much. So great to have you, Mukhtar Mohammed, CEO, Finance with Mukhtar. Thank you.
Thank you, Ladi, for having me.
All right, that's the show today. Markets are open now. I'll give you a summary of what's playing out at 1 p.m. on Business Incorporated. That's it from me right now on Business Morning. I'm Ladi Williams. I hand things over to the Sunrise Daily team.
It is the first plenary session of the week in the House of Representatives. The day begins with motions of urgent national importance, one of which is on the urgent need to investigate the mass retirement of over 1,000 staff of the Central Bank of Nigeria.
The House further concerned that such as a significant decision has socio-economic implications for the affected individual, their dependents, and the broader economy, potentially leading to increased unemployment and public dissatisfaction.
Next, the attention of the House is drawn to the increasing rate of boat mishaps across the country.
Concerned that if nothing is done to improve the safety and emergency response systems, Nigeria will continue to face psychological health trauma, economic losses, and untimely deaths.
In the meantime, the House is urging the President to mandate the Minister of Finance to unfreeze the accounts of the National Social Investment Programs Agency within 72 hours.
The smooth operation of the programs and the fulfillment of the mandate of INSEPA are hindered due to the suspension, freezing of the accounts of the agency and other administrative bottlenecks, which has remained in force even more than 3 months after the president reconstituted the new management of INSEPA.
Order, please.
What seemed like an easygoing session suddenly turns rowdy when the spokesperson of the House, while moving for the consideration of a report, brings up the controversial tax reform bills.
I'm from Ekiti State, the very first state in which our National Assembly caucus has unanimously endorsed the tax bills. Mr. Speaker, I rise on behalf of Honorable Boma Goodhead. Mr. Speaker, please, thank you. Order, please. Order.
The rowdy session is sustained despite the intervention of the Speaker and an apology from the lawmaker.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to withdraw that introduction, sir. Honorable colleagues, I would like to withdraw that introduction and restrict it to the order paper. This has nothing to do with the tax bills. Please.
Honorable Dele Farotimi yields and steps down the consideration of the report.
I seek the leave of the House and Mr. Speaker to step down because the presentation of this report until the next legislative day, Mr. Speaker.
However, the aggrieved lawmakers are not done as they call for the resignation of the deputy spokesperson of the House over a publication.
I woke up this morning to see an online publication from the deputy spokesman of the House. Read as the content, or the heading read as, the newspaper is Daily Trust, and it reads, those who oppose to tax reform bill now seeking speedy passage. This should be produced, or we are calling for his resigning from the spokesperson or deputy spokesperson of this House.
We will make sure that all your concerns with this publication is well noted by the House and the right action will be taken.
Despite the tense atmosphere, the House passes the North Central Development Commission Establishment Bill and adopts the report of the Conference Committee of the House and the Senate on the amendment of the NDLEA Act to provide for life sentence for punishment of drug peddling, as against the death penalty initially passed by the Senate. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
Okay, so to help us unpack some of what was going on there, Honorable Afam Ogene is here with us. He is he's a leader, Anambra and the Labour Party caucuses in that 10th Assembly. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, Chamberlain. Good morning, Terry.
First of all, when is the next legislative day?
The next legislative day is today.
Oh, so we expect a follow-up to some of the issues that happened there.
Well, you might not get the kind of tempest you saw yesterday. Because,
it must have calmed down.
Yes.
But straight away, that just speaks to the temperature in the House. Because when Honorable Rotimi spoke about his constituency being the first of all of them acceding, at least supporting that tax bill, you could see the reaction. So we know that, much beyond that time, you're also in touch with your colleagues. What is going on at the moment in terms of the mood now about this tax bill, or the tax bills?
Well, as you rightly noted, our spokesman, who is a perfect gentleman and very good at his job, suddenly touched a raw nerve, innocently so, when he mentioned the tax bills, because certain provisions, or the entire bill that has to do with VAT collection and all of that remains contentious. And so for some people, any suggestion that the bill, is good to go while it has not been discussed. Remember, we've not had second reading of the bill. For such people, is an affront. And if I would lay a background to it.
Yes, please.
Yeah, there is the politics of the entire bill, and you wonder why out of 4 bills, it is only one that is contentious. The late diplomat, Professor George Obiozor, had once famously described Nigeria's federalism as the politics of precarious balancing. So that is what is at play. What is going to come to my state, to my region, and my area? That is simply what is at play. And you know that both at the subnational and national levels, political arbiters have never been neutral. There are several issues that define how they look at issues. It could be ethnic, could be religious, could be political, it could be the whole essence of tribe. So what you see playing out is tied around all of these indices.
So when perhaps we should just break it down for us. If you said it hasn't gone through the second reading, and if they come up with that, it's an affront. So what are the stages before it gets to public hearing? What is the first stage about? What is the second stage about before it gets to public hearing? And after that, what next? So let's start from there.
Well, for me, I didn't say it's an affront. I said some people considered it an affront.
That's what I meant to say, actually.
Which was why you saw the reaction that we got.
Yeah.
But normally, every typical bill comes to the House. If it's an executive bill, the president writes to the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and the Speaker in turn passes it on to the Rules and Business Committee that schedules it, for the first reading. If it's a judicial bill that comes from the Chief Justice, the same process. And so when it comes to first reading, it's just the reading of the long title of the bill. No debates are allowed at that stage. And then subsequently, a second reading is scheduled where the general principles of the bill is discussed. Members are allowed to discuss for and against the bill, the general principles. And if it passes, when the Speaker puts the question that the bill be read a second time, if the ayes have it, then the bill is committed either to a particular standing committee of the House or several committees if their jurisdictions cut across. And those committees now have the onerous duty of setting the stage for a public hearing where people come, stakeholders in diverse fields would come and speak to the issues about the bill. Whatever issues you have, that is the forum where you can canvass it from the outside. And then the committee now comes up with a report that is presented before the House, and the bill before the third reading will now, a committee of the whole, meaning everybody who is in sitting that day will look at the clauses one by one, each clause. And that is also at the point where amendments take place. If the committee has recommended ABC, a member could get up and canvass why there has to be amendments. Take, for instance, the issue of derivation that we are talking about. A member could say 60% is too much, that it should come down to 30 or 20 as the case may be. And if the majority of members considering it feel that way, then they vote on it, and that amendment stays. At the end of the day, the bill, the Speaker will also put the question, or the chairman, because in consideration, he becomes the chairman of the committee of the whole, will put the question if the bill be read a third time. So once it's read a third time and passed, we'll now wait for the Senate version. And
before both houses have to concur,
yes, they have to concur,
and
the clean copy is transmitted.
I want to be able to talk to you. Well, yesterday we saw a statement from the Minister of Information. I want to be able to get his words. He says, President Tinubu has already directed the Federal Ministry of Justice and relevant officials who worked on the drafts for the task bill, to work closely with the National Assembly to ensure all genuine concerns have been addressed before the bills are passed. And we saw that yesterday from the Minister of Information, which led a lot of people to start understanding why some governors were saying this was done hastily. Maybe these were some of the negotiations that should have been done before we get up to the arguments that we're having right now. What are your thoughts on moving this to the National Assembly so quickly, and as many people have complained that the negotiations that should have been done before the process gets to you wasn't done? Do you agree with that assumption?
Well, I cannot speak for the executive, but sitting from where I am, I think that it could have been better handled. If the presidency or the executive comes up with a bill, I should expect, especially one that would have impact, whether positive or negative, on the subnationals, the states, then I should have thought that there has to be elaborate consultations with the governors. From what we hear, there were such conversations. But the governors too, when they take these things back home and their people raise issues with certain aspects, take for instance, the president was away when the National Economic Council sat, and the vice president is chair of that committee. The resolution from that meeting was that the bill be stepped down for wider consultations. And whether the president so directed, but his spokespersons pushed out a statement almost immediately to say he wasn't going to take that advice, that the bill would be determined at the National Assembly. So for me, I thought that was a little bit confrontational. It would have been much better if the president came back, invited the governors or NEC, the National Economic Council. What are the issues? At the point that the statement was issued, I don't think that the presidency had digested their reservations, which are some of the things that are coming to light now. So I think that the consultations prior to the bill wasn't engaging and far-reaching enough.
So in the circumstance, what may likely play out? I mean, I'm not asking you to second-guess your colleagues when this comes to the floor for debate. Now, when that happens, what do you think the argument of the people who oppose it might be? Because you say the spokesperson appeared to have touched a raw nerve. Now, chances are that when raw nerves are involved, they may argue ways that people may not expect, as long as majority have it, if they're on that same page. So do you think that at the end of the day, people will say, well, I don't agree with this section of the bill, or some people will just think, look, just forget it, no matter what, whether it's good or not, for the sake of the wider consultation not being done? How do you see that argument playing out when it starts?
Well, I think that it's an ongoing process, and even the news item that Keller alluded to just now is part of it. If the president, I saw that report, even though I haven't quite digested it, if the president has directed that there has to be engagement with the National Assembly, that means that he has also taken judicial notice of the discord and the discordant voices, against certain provisions of the bill. For me, the processes of a bill transmitting into an act is what I just outlined, up to when you get presidential assent, or if it is refused, the House can override, or the National Assembly with 2/3 majority. But we are not there. So essentially, those same, I would have thought that the processes be allowed to be followed. That is the typical...
Which processes? Of legislative processes?
Allowing a second reading, and even going for public hearing. But some people are of the opinion that the bill, which is also lawful, that the bill should be withdrawn and reworked. So there are two ways to read. Go through the processes and achieve amendment, or withdraw the bill and take care of these issues that they're talking about.
I mean, even brings me to that, because when that's the conversation going on right now. Okay, so if he's saying that consultations should start with the National Assembly, or continue rather, with the National Assembly. Let's be able to see how we can work out some of the genuine concerns people have. Does that mean that the bill should be withdrawn, or does it mean that the process should just continue while these consultations are ongoing? Those are some of the debates. So what do you think about that?
No, at this stage, the bill is being discussed in caucuses.
Okay.
I belong to the Labour Party caucus, but on this matter, we all belong to states, belong to zonal caucuses. Yes, and it's not a party issue per se. This is about our country, about the relationship between the federal authorities and the subnationals. And we all come from states, so we have to look at it. How does it affect my state, Anambra, for instance? If there are positives in it for Anambra, I'm likely to support the bill. If there are positives for the bill for the Southeast, I'm likely to support the bill. But while I'm at it, I'm also going to look out for my brothers across the aisle. How is it going to affect them? Would it put them in a more precarious state? Are there things to be done to help, the situation? So those are the conversations going on. All of last week, this week, conversations are going on in caucuses.
Well, Lagos has been one of those states accused of saying that they're going to get
in support of the bill.
So, Ayo, I'm sure maybe you'll read the room and see if it's the same feel and vibe they're getting there. Ayo, go ahead, please.
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. One question that I would like to ask, and I'm glad that we're talking about the politics of this process and not just the whatever it is, the values and all of that of the law itself. So, Honorable, the question that I would like to ask you is, exactly what do you think the issues are? You've talked about the fact that there were no consultations, so to speak. However, we know that the national anthem law was passed in record time. So it is not that this bill cannot be passed in quick succession. So for you, what are the issues? So when we said that there were no consultations or the consultations have not been made, how much consultation was made to pass the national anthem law? So, and that's just one of several examples like that in this republic. So what exactly for you, Honorable, are the issues?
Okay, thank you so much. I didn't say that the consultations were not made. I only pointed to the fact that I'm using empirical evidence, as even the president has directed today, to say that maybe the consultations were not far-reaching enough. And I cited an instance where the National Economic Council had taken a position. I thought there would have been further consultations with that august body. Having said that, you cannot equate the national anthem bill with a bill that touches on the entire life of the country. The economy is what drives the country. And so there are two different scenarios. For some members, they couldn't care less whether you sing the old or the new national anthem. And so you are not likely to see a lot of people, take issues with that. But talking about the politics surrounding this bill, if you check, the North, for instance, claim that there are major stakeholders in the Tinubu presidency. Don't forget that the president got to power with 36.6% of the votes of about 24 million votes of Nigerians who voted in that presidential elections. And the North has claimed, even Governor Zulu mentioned the other day, that the North produced 62% of that. Even beyond that, they also feel that they were the ones who insisted that power should go back to the South. And then, even when the Muslim ticket came about, they gave their support. So if they see a bill like this that they feel was going to change them in some way, they are likely to raise, some alarm, which is what they are doing. But the presidency, on the other hand, feels that if the governors, for instance, were to take a major decision through a bill in the state houses of assembly, that of course they will sit with the state assembly and even pass the law before the people know. It happened under former President Buhari, when he insisted that governors cannot appoint their commissioners, and at the federal level, they want to insist to nominate ministers. And so I think that President Tinubu has borrowed from that to want to say that at the federal level, he is in charge. And so these are federal agencies we are talking about, not state agencies. But on the flip side, the North has also looked at the fact that several far-reaching decisions have been taken through the judiciary. The lottery and gaming law that makes it residual, it goes to the state. Only 2 weeks ago, I think lottery, the lottery, the Supreme Court decision that now puts the earnings and control of lotteries in the states. And then you also have the local government autonomy landmark judgment. All these, the governors, I suspect, realize that they will be losing funds in this area. So when you bring a tax reform bill, no matter how good it is, they want to look deeply into some of the details of that law and see that they are not further deprived of federal funding.
Well, Honorable, part of the issues that, we've listened to all shades of opinions. Even Channel Television organized a town hall on this tax reform bills. And to anyone who is listening, as far as anyone is concerned, it should be something that especially the governors themselves should open their hands, their arms, and welcome wholeheartedly. Because a good number of stuff, according to all of the information that is out there, is going more to the states and depriving the federal government, essentially saying that this whole revenue sharing thing, fiscal federalism we're talking about, is coming closer home. That's the reason I asked what the issues are. Is it more political than it concerns the bill itself? Because if it is about the values that will go to the states, unless I'm missing something or people are missing something, it's more in the favor of the states. And 19 states, I understand, are in the north. So that's the reason I asked that question, not that I didn't hear what you said earlier. So is it a problem of, okay, the federal government didn't consult us enough, or what exactly is there? Because if these governors leave office, there's a likelihood that they will regret not supporting this bill now.
Well, I think I'm here to discuss the politics around it. It has nothing to do with whether I support. For me, I'm at home with the provisions of the tax law. I don't think that, I think it's a futuristic law that will help us in the long run. But the politics of it remains that some parts of the North feel that they are not economically endowed enough to stand on their own. And they quickly cite even the United States of America, where we run to pick examples about our federalism. There are also states that are considered the poorer states. Talk of Alabama, New Mexico, Mississippi, and they get a plethora of federal support and funding in healthcare, infrastructure, and all of that. In fact, Mississippi at a point have 40% of their annual budget funded from the center. And so some of the issues that I've heard, surrounding this whole issue is that some federal institutions would, of course, have to go. How do you justify a situation where, for instance, Ted Fund, that is an interventionist agency, now gets much more money than the Federal Ministry of Education that is supposed to be overseeing Ted Fund? But some people also are benefiting from Ted Fund, that it will help them put structures in universities, across the country. So these are arguments that have been canvassed behind closed doors, not many people are likely to come out and tell you that these are the issues. But if you go beyond the bill, it is the politics behind the bill that is causing all this brouhaha. And I'd also mention that I think that the arguments around the bill was left to the people outside of the assembly and outside the political players. So immediately, even without reading the bill, a lot of people denounced it. As far as they were concerned, President Tinubu was going to impose further hardship on the people, because once you hear tax, what comes to mind is digging more holes in your pocket. And so the people on the outside appropriated the discourse and started threatening, their representatives. So would you wonder, for instance, why a presiding officer will have a wedding that has been scheduled for Kanu relocated to Abuja? So it's not as easy as we think.
It appears that there may be a catch-22 situation here, because at the end of the day, if this matter becomes a legal case and it ends up residual, they will still end up losing, because whatever any state is getting, they will eventually keep. So, but for this, and in conclusion, now, on this last point which we made, if I could just stretch that a little bit, how do you see this playing off? If the members, or if there are people back home feel this is our position, and the members in the assembly feel, well, that position is uninformed, and as a member of the House, if I see the bill and I feel, well, the rightful position is actually to support the bill, while, quote unquote, my people oppose the bill, as a politician, perhaps if you could use yourself as an example, would you rather stick with the right thing, which may oppose the views of your people, or would you say, no, I'll just have to go with what my people say, whether I agree with the right thing or not?
Well, it is said that all politics is local. So you didn't bring yourself to Abuja. People, voted for you, elected you to just be their representative, their spokesman. And so you must also factor in their sensitivities in all matters, and especially in a matter like this. But I think that what should happen, and what is already happening, is that every legislation and politics generally is about negotiations. Okay. So if they are able to negotiate and get what they think is a better deal for their people, I think they will now have the leverage to go back and explain to them, and that's settles it. All right, that settles it for us as well on this segment. Thank you very much indeed for coming on this morning. Honorable Afam Osigwe is a member of the Victor Afamogene is a member of Ogbaru Federal Constituency. He is of the Labour Party caucus in the 10th Assembly. Well, that wraps up the program today. We do thank you all for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain Osok. Goodbye.
Thank you very much for being with us. I'm Kayla Magwa.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful day.